Hi, I'm Maya Anista Smith, and I have the incredible privilege of serving as the executive director of Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation. I'm so excited to be with you tonight for this important conversation. Thank you to Build, to Tumblr, and especially to Oath for hosting us tonight and for being such incredible Be Kind 21 partners. We're here tonight to talk about Be Kind 21. We know from science that doing something for 21 days in a row creates a habit. We use it for working out, we use it for dieting, and now we're using it for kindness. We created a national campaign inviting people to be kind for 21 days and build a habit of kindness. Today we're here and we'll hear three incredible pairs of people telling their stories of kindness. So first, Alex and Phoenix, thank you so much for being here. Can't wait to hear from you.
Hi, Phoenix. How are you?
Good. How are you, Alex?
I'm well. For those of you watching who don't know, I'm Alex Boniello. That is Phoenix Best. We are in the Broadway company of Dear Evan Hansen, and we are kind of here to kick off this conversation about what kindness means to us and I think to each other and how it plays into our lives.
Yeah. So, we're here to tell stories about kindness in our lives, and I was thinking about a story to tell for kindness since they asked us to be here. And I couldn't think of a story. And then this morning, if I'm being totally candid, I just had a really bad day. I had a lot of self-doubt and a lot of feelings of not being confident in myself. And this morning, I had to take the time to be kind to myself. That's part of, the reason that we're here to talk about stories of being kind to others, but also being kind to yourself. And so this morning, I had to take some steps to remind myself that I'm beautiful and I'm talented and I'm important and there's a reason, why I'm here, and that I felt alone this morning and I needed to be kind to myself to even just get out of bed and go to work today. I didn't want to go to work, and the story that we tell is a really empowering, hard-hitting story about someone who feels alone and someone who doesn't have a lot of confidence, and my character is somebody who uplifts that character a lot throughout the show, and so to feel down myself and then have to...
I feel like a phony.
Yeah, I felt like a phony. I was I have to go in and pretend I'm really excited and lift you up when I feel like crap, but I talked to my boyfriend this morning and he gave me a lot of words of encouragement that then helped me be you also have to affirm these things for yourself. I couldn't always look for other people to be kind to me. I have to be kind to myself. And I realized that in being kind to myself this morning, that I was able to go and do a show that impacted so many people in the audience and allowed them to know they can be kind to themselves, because that's what our story is about. And so it's kind of this weird full circle moment, I guess, that I had even just coming here today, knowing that I had to talk about kindness, knowing I wasn't kind to myself this morning, and the thoughts that I had about who I am and what I have to offer. And to be here is kind of surreal, I guess.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you talk about your boyfriend giving you words of encouragement, because it's I've found that there's so much value in something like that, but I've also found, and I think he would agree, and I think you would agree, there's also a weird amount of sometimes you don't need to have answers, and I think kindness can come in the form of just being there, and being empathetic, which is something I have learned a lot about recently, because we're talking about our significant others. My girlfriend has learned a lot recently about volunteering and volunteer work, and how when helping people, there's so much value in not necessarily always trying to fix. Sometimes it's literally just being a person who can say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry you're going through that right now. And sometimes that's as valuable as someone having sage-like advice. Sometimes all you need is somebody to say, that stinks, and I'm sorry, and I'm here if you need anything. And sometimes people will just open up and be like, thank you, and then they can talk about what they need to talk about. And I think it's so interesting how two completely different forms of kindness can activate helping a person.
Yeah, and definitely, after all those words, I was thank you so much. But then I also apologized for laying all of my feelings out there. And then I was why am I apologizing? And he was you're fine. You're fine. it's okay to feel how you feel, and take this time to like boost yourself up. I mean, words of affirmation are definitely encouraging, but also like find that within yourself to be kind to you no matter what.
Yeah, it's so interesting being a part of this show, and having those kinds of realizations just throughout your normal day, every single day, because it's we go through the same journey, the same 2.5 hour journey every single every day, every night, of a story of a young man who doesn't who may have felt a lot like you were feeling in the morning, or differently, but just feeling alone, not feeling validated, or that his existence is worth something. And it's so interesting that we talk about kindness, because when we were kind of, you and I, discussing what we were going to talk about on this panel here, realizing what a community of kindness I think this show has done such an amazing job of cultivating and creating. You and I both joined the show during its run, after it had spent months and now almost years with an S, realizing what this show can do for people, and very specifically young people. And I think in my case, I have found the kindest thing I've been able to do for the young people who feel like Evan Hansen does throughout the show is to just kind of be honest and available about my own stuff. I'm always very freely talking about how I struggle with an anxiety disorder in my daily life, and I've found that just being honest and open is such an interesting form of kindness that you can show to other people, because at the end of the day, if we go to the stage door after the show and there's a young person talking about, like, feeling the need to express something that's been going on in their life to us, and sometimes we only have so much time with them, and you can't really, like, we're also not therapists, so we can't like really get in and like help them with things. But I found that the kindness we can offer is just being our most authentic selves to them. Like, me owning that I've got an anxiety disorder may make 10 kids who saw the show in the audience who deal with the same thing feel like, wow, he's on that stage doing that and it's not stopping him. Or you just now saying that you didn't feel great this morning.
Yeah.
Like, being honest about that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be honest with others and yourself as to where you are, how you're feeling. Sometimes I understand, like, we don't always want to, open up. Like this morning, at first, I did not want to open up about anything. I wanted to just like deal with it on my own. But I was like, that's really just like, I guess, it's really just like stifling, what is going on inside, rather than just like letting it out. But yeah, with this show, I think it's really helpful to let the fans and people who love this show know that we're people just like them, and we go through things just like they do, and just like Evan Hansen does. And I remember being in high school, and like all the there's so many things that happen in high school, and you feel like it's the end of the world, and then like you realize like you can get past that, and you go on to the next thing, and you have to be kind to yourself and to others around you. And I think also in that, with me realizing this morning, like, I had to be kind to myself, I was like, I have to be kind to others, because you also don't know where they are in their life. You don't know their story. You don't know what happened to them earlier in the day. I came to work and everyone was like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? And like, I'm usually this happy, bubbly person. And I was like, I'm just having a bad day. And everyone was there to support me. Sometimes it was just like a touch to be like, I'm here for you. Or sometimes it was just a smile.
In my case, it's staying as far away from you as possible.
Oh my gosh.
Is the goal for you.
Of course, because here we are.
Yes. Well, yeah, and then they stuck us together. I'm completely there with you. And I think how, maybe it sounds a little cheesy, but it's I'm only noticing right now as we talk about this, at the end of the show, Evan says, today you're you, and that's enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I always find it cheesy to like quote the show you're in when you're on one of these panels, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's so appropriate. It's so apt to what we're saying. Is he goes through so much throughout the course of this show, but at the end, he hasn't fixed everything. He's still the same person that he was, but at least he knows that just being him is all he has to do to be there for himself.
Yeah.
And it's kind of him, I don't know, becoming his own best friend in a way.
Yeah, I mean, just saying like you are enough. I mean, that word sometimes like makes me like nervous. I'm like, am I enough? Am I enough in my job? Am I enough, you know, in my healthy lifestyle that's not always so healthy, and like my eating habits and whatever. But every time I'm kind to myself in that, where I'm like, you can get past it, you can move on, you know, everything's not gonna be perfect, you know, no person is perfect. Not even like the people who you're like, oh, well, I don't wanna be nice to them, I don't wanna be kind to them. It's like, they're a person, they're human, and they're enough. And I think that's the importance of it all, is like to see yourself and to see that thing that you see in yourself in others as well.
Yeah, and something you just said is, by saying you're enough, it's also saying that like when you're not in the most excellent place, that's also totally fine.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be your most unbelievably perfect self every second of the day. And I think the nicest thing you can do for yourself and the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to just look in the mirror and say like, oh man, today is not great, and that's fine. Like, because we're people, and no one's a robot, nobody's happy 100% of the time, and if you are, please tell me your secrets. But yeah.
And also, it doesn't have to stop you, you know,
No.
where you are. It doesn't have to stop you from achieving your goals, you know, reaching the things that you want to reach, going out there and reaching others, you know, just by being who you are, where you are, what you are.
Yeah, it's. I'm like. They told us in the back, like, you're gonna start talking. Don't worry. And now we're both like, oh, well, let us tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and seeing, it's the same thing going along with all of that as after every performance, even if we didn't feel good about ourselves that day. Like, there's a moment at the end of the show where Evan is downstage talking, and the rest of the 7 cast members are just behind him, kind of looking out, and we're just there kind of with Evan. And you can see the whole audience, and it's really special, I think, to see everybody process the same thing that we're just talking about right now, like in real time, because like we're lit in such a way that they're definitely looking at Evan, and we can just kind of sit back and like look at these people digest the information, and it's really, really awesome to see. I don't know, I like to think that if I see somebody like openly weeping, that 1, the show worked and we got you, but 2, that I like to think that, you know, maybe that is a moment of someone being like, I have to be kinder to myself. You know, I've just watched this kid go through all of this, and he's able to stand there as a 5'7" pillar of strength.
Yeah.
That they can do it too.
Yeah, I think, and also what you were saying about how like some days, you know, we don't have the greatest shows, and or it's more just like us feeling that way about ourselves, you know.
Nobody ever knows.
Yeah, and like you go out to the stage door and people are like, you did a great job, but like you're like, oh, that wasn't the best show. And I think the one thing I've noticed also in the show too is that when Heidi, she like has this moment where with Evan where he's like breaking down, and she's like, I promise you, it'll all feel like a distant memory, like these hard feelings, this pain, whatever it is to you, it'll feel like just a memory. And that reminds me to take every moment, just one moment at a time. I mean, today too, you know, I wasn't having the best day, and I was talking to Alex, and Alex was like, listen, we got a show, we're gonna run over and we're gonna go speak, and then we're gonna have to run right back to the show, and we're not gonna have too much time to do anything else today. He was like, listen, I'm just gonna take it one moment at a time. And I was like the light bulb went off. I was like, yeah, it's one moment at a time. It's one day at a time. It's 1 week at a time, you know?
Yeah, I'm very impressed that I was able to give you some
really
good advice. My kindness today then was
to me.
Was to Phoenix. I'll have to make up for it during the show. I'll trip her or something. If she falls now during the show, it was not me, and don't sue me. But it's on camera now, so I guess I'm due.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, all of that to say, I've loved this conversation. We have to go do the show.
Yeah.
Again. Let's do it.
Let's go do it.
Let's
Let's do a second show today.
All right, awesome. Thanks for listening,
guys, for
guys.
listening.
I hope this was helpful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much again, Alex and Phoenix, for that incredible conversation. I'm struck by something that Alex said about how just being who you really are is an act of kindness and being open and honest. I'm so proud to introduce two women who live that out every day, who I have the pleasure of working with at Born This Way Foundation. And because I want Cynthia to get to her story, I'll just share a minute on Born This Way Foundation. Born This Way was founded 6.5 years ago by Lady Gaga and this incredible woman that you're about to meet. It was steeped in the personal experiences that Lady Gaga had growing up, and our mission is to build a kinder and braver world. We focus on young people, we do for and with young people, and I'm so proud to have you both here. And it's my pleasure to introduce Cynthia Germanotta and Shadil Esteban.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you all for being here. I'm really happy to be here with you too, Shadil. And again, I'm Cynthia Germanotta, and I'm president and co-founder of Born This Way Foundation, which I founded with my daughter, Stephanie, who many of you know as Lady Gaga, and we exist because of her. I mean, we're in the kindness business, and we're in that because of her. She experienced a lot of struggles, as you know, Shadil, growing up as a young woman, and wanted to create an environment to better equip young people to deal with their struggles than she was. And she really believes that kindness is the key to that. So I'm really excited to be here with you and share our stories. And I know you got involved with the foundation a couple years ago.
Thank you so much. And when the foundation says that we work with young people, I am one of those young people that has benefited from Born This Way Foundation in insurmountable ways. And 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to serve on a youth advisory board, and we're a core group of young people just helping to guide the foundation. And I'm more than excited to be here today and to talk to you guys about kindness and the work that we get to do.
So I think we're going to focus a little bit on kindness in families, and I'll start with my story, which is really I think from a parenting perspective, and one that I hope will resonate with some of the parents and even the children, out there. And it has to do with an aha moment that I really had as a parent, and a very unexpected moment. I mean, as parents, we always expect to take care of our children, right? And I think that holds true no matter how old they are. I mean, my mom is still taking care of me, and I love it. But this was a time when Stephanie was really having some of her deepest struggles, I will say, and my husband and I wanted to swoop in and kind of fix everything. As parents, we're fixers, and we try to protect our children. So my husband and I worked very hard to kind of try to get her out of the environment that she was in, take her for a walk, and spent the next 30 minutes trying to fix the problem. And counseling her on maybe giving her some advice. These are some things that maybe we recommend that you do, talking to her about her health, many, many different suggestions and ideas that we had. And at the end of the walk that we had, I mean, she kind of looked at us and said, that was really lovely, and thank you for the walk, but I really just wanted you to listen to me. And I really just wanted you to validate my feelings. And it was very much an awakening for me, and advice that I needed to hear as a parent, and that I needed to really accept as a parent, not understanding that that's really all that she wanted, was for me to just validate her needs. And I think so often that can happen to us, where as parents, and we know this through some of our research, that we listen, but we're not always understanding what our children are saying and what they're telling us, and that's all that they really want.
And I've 100% been that girl just desperately seeking for someone to listen to me, and to share my emotions and to share how I felt. And I grew up in a house with, we're 4 rambunctious kids, and so we didn't make it easy for my mom, but there were many moments where I had the chance to interact with my parents and talk to them about how I was feeling, and sometimes it wasn't specific enough, I think.
Yeah.
I think that the conversations could have been a lot more geared specific to the stress that I was feeling at school or at home. But even amongst all of that, that stress that I may have been feeling, or that I was feeling when I was in high school, there are so many moments where my siblings, with a simple act of kindness, came in and showed me that everything will be okay and that I have a team of people to help me and to have my back. And one of those moments is actually last year. My younger sister, she's probably watching right now. Hey, she just started high school, and so she and I are 10 years apart. And because I work with Born This Way Foundation, and because I'm thankfully introduced to these topics, I also talk to her about mental health and kindness and what that looks like in school and in our home. And sometimes even being the individual who gets to have these conversations and talks about kindness, we're not always kind to ourselves, as the last presenters shared. And in this specific moment last year, I wasn't being kind to myself, and I was feeling incredibly overwhelmed with a lot of things, I think, trying to be an older sister, trying to be the best employee, trying to be there for my parents and helpful, and should I pick up my sister from school? And so all of these things filled my mind, and she saw that. And so one day she asked me if I wanted to watch a Netflix movie with her, and I was like, I'm so busy, like I really can't, not today. And instead of insisting, instead of approaching me in any way that she might have thought I needed to hear, she said instead, she stepped back. She went into the bathroom. She cleaned my bathroom. She put candles, like scented, like eucalyptus type stuff. And and she placed these candles everywhere in the bathroom and put my speaker and played Joanne album, which she knew I was in love with. And so she played this album. She had these candles. She turned the lights off. She even put a chair in the shower so that I can feel the water just soaking and kind of like metaphorically taking away all of this stress and like stripping me of the self-doubt that I was feeling in the moment. And I was like crying for like a good 40 minutes in the shower by myself, but so thankful that instead of insisting that I talk to her or that I spend this time with her, she realized and she took the time to listen to how I was feeling and shared that moment. And I'm so grateful for her kindness and the kindness of my other siblings as well.
That's incredible, but yeah, I know, yeah. Big round of applause there, yeah. But think about like the power of that one kind act. It was actually a very simple act, but she was in tune to your stress level and recognized that and acknowledged it, and that one thing allowed you to really open up and de-stress, and she was there for you.
Yeah.
And we know, through our work at the foundation, right, and the research that sometimes it just takes one person in your life to be that person for you. And quite often, it's not your parents. We know that through our research that often young people will turn to a peer, rather than to a parent for many, many different reasons. And one of those is feeling that they will be judged. Whereas young people feel, gee, my parents know me as a person and who I am, but I'm afraid to tell them certain things because I'll be judged. But here your sister just intuitively, understood that. And I'm wondering too, Shadil, how you feel. Do you think, like my story, your story, some of this to me looks like intergenerational differences also? Like where I grew up and how I grew up was with more like the times of true grit where you're just kind of expected to suck it up and snap out of it and get over it. And whereas if you look at your sister, she was much more in tune to you and paying attention, not with blinders on. And I mean, do you sense, and I'm and I know with your mom too, I'm probably her age. So there's a lot of intergenerational differences in families about how you deal with stress, how you deal with mental health, and how you care for yourself and others.
Yeah, most definitely. And then I think on top of that, there's like, in my household, there's like a cultural difference. So we're Hispanic, and not only is my mother's generation, but also my cultural background not, we don't exactly embrace the conversations around mental health. And so oftentimes, yeah, when I was younger, I felt, I mean, still today, there are conversations that I hope to have with my mom, and I think that what I hear most is, like you've got to like pull yourself together, or comments like those that I think she's so used to hearing. And hopefully through more conversations with my younger sister, and incorporating my parents and inviting them, I think one thing that's been helpful, at least within my family, is the opportunity to talk about these topics outside of the home. If it's in your home where you feel that you can't really have these types of conversations, take a walk. Sometimes we will walk the dog, we'll go to the park, just an opportunity to breathe, to step outside, and that sometimes helps open up those conversations, despite the difference in the generation.
Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, there's still such a stigma attached to talking about mental health, and your sister, like, being so kind to you allows you to open up and talk about it. And I think that's one of the beauties of Be Kind 21, the 21-day challenge, that people are now, we're bringing a conversation to the table to have a healthy conversation about mental health, and not, there's countries where people are criminalized still for having, health issues, and other people not being kind to them. So, what are you seeing in your community, or even through the foundation, of ways that young people can be kind to others and kind of break down that stigma around mental health?
Sure thing. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak to about 500 high schoolers about this very same topic. And they submitted questions, and they are also engaged in the 21 Days of Kindness, and this was happening back in Miami. And so all over the country, young kids are mobilizing. They're getting together to talk about mental health and kindness, and how this can all integrate into their daily life. And a specific example is this organization at the school. The club is called SHAPE. And at this school, this club is I think there was like 10 students who came together before school started to decorate the bulletin boards around school. And there are typical decorations, which I'm familiar with, like around campus, just to make it look more lively. But they decorated with kindness, like kind messages and words of affirmation all around the school. And for them to take the time out of their summers to come in early, they've got the same back to school routines as most of the other students in their school, only they took this extra step to change the space that they are a part of. And I think that would be that's what I've seen, right? Young people saying, okay, we need to have more of these conversations. Let's create the space where my peers feel more comfortable to talk about these topics that aren't really easy to talk about. So I admire all of these young people who really take that leap to talk about how they're feeling in and out of school, in their communities, or at home.
And it makes such a difference. I mean, I think that kindness can be very underrated in many, many ways. And teaching young children to be kind, the earlier the better, so that they can really better learn coping skills, conflict resolution, how to get along in classrooms. So, we're actually seeing a lot of that, as you know, with learning and kindness programs in schools now that are popping up, which is wonderful to see.
Yeah, and I'm curious. So I know that a lot of young people, we hear from our parents, like, be kind, right? We hear the word like be kinder, or talk about mental health, be braver. And so in my eyes, when I saw my mother be a kind person, when I saw her say to my neighbor, listen, I know that you have to get out of work at this time. I can bring your kids home, right? Something as easy as like a ride home. Those are the examples that I saw my mom take. What are some ways that parents can exemplify kindness and showcase it?
Well, it's just that, and I think we're wrapping our segment, but it's just that. It's modeling it for one, so set that example, talk about it, and create spaces and provide tools, for young people to get the help they need and have the right tools to be kind and be their best self. So,
Definitely.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It's great
Thank you
talking.
so much.
Thanks for having us.
I think that you can see these incredible women. When I was growing up, my mom used to tell me that if I found a job that I loved, I'd never work a day in my life. And you can see working with Shadell and Cynthia, it absolutely feels that way. I'm so excited to introduce our last couple, Noah from Huffington Post and Jen from Oath. I can't wait to hear what you're going to share with us tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Noah.
So I'm going to go first, and we're going to do a little storytelling, a little bit less banter, a little more storytelling. So when they asked us to do this, and I had to think about kindness, I sort of thought of two stories. One goes back to my youth, and one is from about 2 weeks ago. So the first one, I grew up in Wisconsin in the 80s, and I came out of my mom's womb the gayest creature you've ever seen in your entire life. And if you've never been to Wisconsin in the 80s, it's not a great place to be gay. So it was rough. It was really, really rough. And if you've never been to Wisconsin in the 80s and gone to Catholic school, it's even worse. I couldn't hide my gayness. There's nothing I could do about it. So when I got to 9th grade, I was tortured. And it was really bad. And that year, I spent a lot of time wishing that I was dead. I spent a lot of time wishing I was dead. I spent a lot of time writing letters to God asking him to make me not gay anymore. Well, I didn't get any responses, and I'm still gay, so it didn't work. But the hardest part for me were two things. One was gym class, which was awful, and the other was lunch. And we had to go to lunch every day. And so I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get out of gym class. One of them was I would go down to my dad's workroom in my basement, and he had a vise. And I would put my arm in the vise, and I would take a wrench, and I would try to get I called it courage, to break my wrist so that I wouldn't have to go to gym class. Couldn't do it, didn't do it. And then I spent a lot of time at the top of my basement stairs trying to get the courage to throw myself down the stairs. Couldn't do that either. So I went to gym class, and it was awful. But lunch, I thought, I can get out of lunch. There is a biology teacher who seems like she kind of knows what's going on. She's not stopping it, because in the early 90s, they didn't stop it, especially at Catholic school. But I asked her, I said, can I come to your biology lab, and can I study during lunch? And that was code. She knew what was going on, and she said, you can. And that one little act of her letting me into her biology lab changed my life. And it allowed me to survive. And I think about that, I think you guys know the phrase, it gets better, right? We didn't have that in 1992. And I don't even love It Gets Better Now, because I think when people say it gets better, it doesn't help when you are in that moment. When you are a freshman in high school and you're being tortured, someone saying 8 years from now, 4 years from now, it's gonna get better, that means nothing to you, because every single day is about survival. So what mattered to me was kindness, was that act of kindness that biology teacher showed me. And she said, I will give you this place where you can be safe. And I was safe, and I left that school, and here I am today, and I think that's a really amazing thing. And now we fast forward to 2 weeks ago. One of my best friends just died of pancreatic cancer. She'd been fighting it for 2 years. And that's also an awful thing to go through in a different way. But there was this PR agent. I work at HuffPost, and I work with a lot of PR people, and a lot of PR people are very nice, but they can also be really fake and really phony. And if you're in PR, I'm sure you're great. But a lot of you, I'm not talking about you, but a lot of them just want to get their client placed somewhere, and I get that, it's a job. But this woman, who is a record, she worked for a music company. One day she asked me if I could interview this person, and I said, no, I can't actually. I'm gonna be out of town. And she asked if I was doing something fun. And in a moment of sort of just radical honesty, I told her what was going on. I was going up to Boston to see my friend who was dying. And she said, oh, that's so sad. I'm so sorry to hear that. And she shared a story about her own life. And then every single Friday, that was in June, since then, she's reached out to me and she's emailed me and she said, how are you doing? How is your friend? A little tiny thing, a little tiny moment of kindness that she didn't have to do, that no one required her to email me. And again, that changed my life. And I saw her, I met her for the first time last week, because I'd never met her. It was an email relationship. And we had lunch. And we both ended up crying halfway through lunch because I said to her, I said, I don't think you understand how powerful that was to me. I heard from you more than I heard from some of my best friends who didn't know what to do with me, who didn't know how to say, I know what you're going through, what can I do for you, how can I be there for you? And I don't blame them for that because I wouldn't know either, I think, in a lot of ways. But to have this person, to have this stranger come along and say, I'm thinking of you. Is there anything I can do? And no, there's nothing you can do. But just to be heard, just to have someone say, I'm listening, that act of kindness was a radical act. And so that's what I think about when I think of kindness, Jen. I think of that we don't always have to do these huge things. It can be a tiny moment. And we have no idea how that moment is what the ramifications are gonna be of that moment. So that's why I was excited to be here. As someone who has dealt with suicide myself, as someone who's dealt with death, someone who's had a really great life in a lot of ways too, I think we can't overstate how important being kind is and how it can change someone's life.
I could not agree more. Some of the most amazing people in my life and experiences that I reflect on have come from acts of kindness. And much like what you were saying when you opened up about unexpectedly about your friend's illness, a year ago, pretty much to this date, I was at the Oath sales conference in Denver and being introduced on stage for people to get to know the leadership team. And at the time, my leader expressed to us how important being vulnerable was to my new coworkers and my new team. And I wasn't entirely sure how that was going to manifest itself. I think the question that came up was, what do your coworkers mean to you? And I started to reflect on the many years that I've been at this company. It's been 17. And 17 years ago, I was here in New York and traveling for business, and I lost my father to suicide while I was here. Leading up to that, he had become very ill, diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. And, you know, I struggled because 17 years ago, suicide wasn't acceptable to talk about. And I was dealing with it as the oldest child and caring for him. And I was under an incredible amount of pressure and stress. I had just started at AOL, and I wanted to do well at the company and not take a ton of time off. And at any rate, at that time, I found such incredible support from my friends and my coworkers for what I was going through. And at that time, I started to realize that their kindness to me was a pay it forward moment for myself. Now, it took me years to come out of the depths of sadness and despair, hopelessness as a survivor of suicide. Years of hating the world around me, for sure. But when I came out of it, I realized that if somebody had been kind to my dad, who was walking around the grocery store talking to himself, for all intents and purposes, that would have meant so much to me. And so what I decided to do consciously is to make small impacts and show kindness to as many people as I could possibly show that to. My husband keeps saying that someday I'm gonna end up on Dateline because of my big risk, big reward theory. Every time I text him with a stranger that I've picked up on the side of the road because it's freezing cold and the man's nose is running, and I take a photo and I'm like, hey, meet Muhammad. I'm driving him to 30 miles away because he's cold and doesn't have a ride. He'll say, he does the face palm gif and says, you're gonna be on Dateline someday. But alas, I have not, and I have come out of it with some really amazing experiences. The biggest one happened to me. I'm getting teary because I'm looking at this person who was involved in this. This happened to me a year and a half ago, about. I was driving on Interstate 95 to my daughter's cheer competition, and distracted, and was with another mom and another little girl. And the traffic was going 75, 80 miles an hour. And right in front of me, I saw a car get hit and knocked off of the road. The car went into the median and up a hill and hit a tree and rolled back down. And we pulled over and I jumped out. And that is the day that I met Colin, who was the driver of that car. He was not in a good place. And I sat on the side of the road with him and two of his friends while the shock trauma helicopters landed on the road. And I comforted his friends. Colin was not conscious, but I comforted his friends. I went into mama bear mode and was holding and hugging them. They were worried about Colin. And finally culminated in a police officer telling me that they were not putting Colin in the shock trauma helicopter, that he wasn't going to live. And it made me very sad, very sad. But a week later, I got a phone call from his mother, and he was, in fact, alive, albeit in a coma and shock trauma. And I have become friends with Colin and his family through his recovery. And I had the opportunity, sorry, I'm wiping my nose with my hand, no tissues. I had the opportunity to meet him for the first time in person a month ago. And Colin is here tonight, right in front of me. Look at this. Back for the attack. Who would have thought? I said to him when we were texting to meet one another for the first time, he was describing himself to me as if I hadn't seen him before. And I said, well, hopefully this time, oh, thank you, you're so kind. I said, hopefully this time you won't have brains coming out of your nose and the bone coming out of your arm. And it was quite a moment. The kindness that I gave, I received in return when I saw him for the first time. I got this hug that was magic, because I knew that I had deeply affected somebody else's life just by taking a risk and being kind. How do you feel about receiving kindness on the side of the road that day? Tell me all about it.
I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because, you know, a lot of times people exaggerate and they say this person means everything to them or their life wouldn't be the same without this person. But you truly impacted my life, because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you. So there's no way I could explain how thankful I am that you were there that day and I had the privilege of crossing paths with you, because I really wouldn't be here today, and that's everything.
Yeah, I'm really glad we got to meet, and I'm grateful for you coming into my life. And it's so bizarre for me to say this, but my dad's suicide brought me to help other people. Who would ever believe that from tragedy you could learn kindness? So I don't know from your own tragedy if you've learned that too, and I hope you carry it forward.
I'll try.
Wow.
How's my makeup?
You look great. But I think, something that we learned from this entire segment is just that the way that kindness can really reverberate, and that it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't have to take a lot. Just from hearing Phoenix talking about waking up in the morning and being kind to yourself, or a huge act like this one. They're all important. They all matter. And you just don't know where you're going to find yourself from one day to the next, or how you're going to impact someone's life.
Yeah, I can't explain enough how often I reflected after my dad's passing on how he must have appeared to other people, and how if somebody would have just kind of reached out and said, hi, how are you? Are you okay? In those moments where he was hearing voices and seeing things in the grocery store. I reflect on that because I was with him one day when that was happening. And I could see all the eyes on him. And, when I find myself in that situation and having the opportunity, instead of looking at somebody strangely, I know that they need somebody to just make eye contact and say hello and be warm. And so, I really think that over 21 days, I think every one of us could just reach out and be kind to somebody that's unexpected, and you will be shocked at the response that you will get from those actions. So that would be my advice.
I agree. I'm glad we got to have this chat. Colin, I'm glad that you got to be here. And thanks everyone who came to watch too. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Colin. It's a pleasure to meet you. Jen and Noah, I think if there's anything we take away from today, it's that kindness isn't this nice to have mushy feeling. It can save lives, whether you do it for 21 days, for 17 years, or for the rest of your life. Thank you so much to everyone who shared today. Thank you so much for everyone who's here with us and watching at home. Thank you so much to Build, to Tumblr, and to Oath for being such incredible partners. Thank you and good night.